Hello, babes, and welcome to chapter 44 of Author Reads Her Own Book because she can't afford a narrator. This is my dystopian action adventure. We're on chapter 44 of it. We are all the way back here. Good Lord, I'm not used to this camera. See? Back here. This is the end. Only a little bit left to go. So I really appreciate you being here. If you're brand spanking new, you can, of course, jump in anywhere you like, but it might make a little bit more sense if you go back to the beginning. To that end, I will have a link to the prologue down below. And thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Now, The Rebels, chapter 44. Fuck! Fuck, 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 fuck! Sure, my team had gotten out in one piece. Sure, we'd managed to find a car we could jack. But not everybody in the 4 teams had gotten out. Not everybody we'd intended to retrieve had made it. Kitten died in the extraction, shot by the woman she'd suspected of spying for Steve, Mona. The three of the women in my own group had died, though all the bodies had been recovered, carried out by their friends. And at this moment, 3 days after we escaped the city, I stared through a scope at the other 2 people who hadn't made it out. Thunder and Lightning. Steve didn't know exactly where we hid, but they knew we were in the Cascade Mountains. To that end, they'd brought what looked like the entire damn army into the foothills, making no effort to hide themselves. They'd set up in a huge open field, the army standing in a cluster with a small clearing in the center. Inside the clearing, I saw a slim, dignified soldier of medium height, a huge white man with the sleeves torn off his shirt, a lovely young woman, and next to these 3, Lightning and Thunder hung, crucified on rough logs. The young women barely moved, and I found it difficult to focus on them, tears constantly forming. I wiped them away angrily. Crying wouldn't help them now. Is it too late to say trigger warning? While we'd sent all the newly rescued into the lair in the bus with an escort, the majority of the fighters, nearly 30 strong, lay in a row along a tree-covered ridge, half with me and half with Seahorse a little ways to the north. Despite the fact that we had roughly 2 miles between us and the soldiers, we kept our heads down, close enough to see but not to shoot. 3 people to my right, Sung-Ki got her hands on a scope, and she tried scrambling to her feet, hissing angrily. Sirius grabbed the hem of her jacket, dragging her down easily. Sung-Ki, normally so calm, turned on my cousin, teeth bared. "It's him!" "Him?" Sirius pointed, disbelief evident in her tone. "Yeah!" "Who is this him you're talking about?" Phoenix asked. "Quan-Jay," Sung-Ki gritted. "He is man who... "That's the sadistic bastard who sent her east," Sirius finished bluntly. That got my full attention. "What do you know about him?" "He is control here." Holy shit! So that nondescript man down below was the distant enemy we'd been facing for roughly 9 months. All of us went back to the scopes, finally putting a face to our foe. To my left, Doc hissed a curse. "You see that big white bastard with Quan-Jay?" she asked. "That's my husband." "Motherfucker!" I gave him more of my attention. He stood a good deal taller than Steve, his brown hair in a crew cut. With the torn shirt, we could easily see the muscles in his arms. He looked a hard man, one who'd let cruelty have free rein. This thought was borne out a moment later when he reached over and casually pinched Thunder's nipple, twisting until she arched in pain. Her scream reached us long seconds later as Doc wept. Then the girl slumped against her bonds. "And her," Sung-Ki whispered. The young woman with Quan shone in the bright spring sun, mahogany hair and slim form set off by the exquisite dress she wore. She stood as a painful contrast in her manicured perfection to the sisters, bloody and torn, next to her. "Who the hell's that bitch?" asked Phoenix, tense and angry next to me. "She belonged to Quan-Jay. She tell Quan-Jay where send me." I glimpsed the woman passing her scope to Eleanor, who'd crawled up to see too. The young woman looked vaguely familiar, though I couldn't place her. Eleanor moaned, slumping to the ground. Eleanor! A scuffle ensued as we all tried to see to Eleanor, our rock and moral compass. When the dust died, Storm held her mother closely, staring across the distance to the army with red-rimmed eyes. That's Eleanor's daughter, Anna, she said tonelessly. Oh, fuck! I rubbed my face, feeling suddenly ancient. Just one thing after the other. Why did we never have any time? Still, time to pretend to be a leader. Doc. She didn't respond. Doc! Yes? She looked at me like she'd just woken up. Can you tell how bad the girls are? Can they walk? Are you thinking of a rescue? Phoenix stared at me, a grim smile stretching her lips but never touching her eyes. No, yes, maybe. Damn it! Doc, what do you think? I looked to the doctor desperately, hoping for a good verdict and afraid we wouldn't get one. She stared through the scope for long minutes, fingers tapping on the ground as if she were counting. Finally, Doc put the scope down, scrubbing a hand over her face. Lines stood out sharply, making her look older than her years. No good. I can see bone in at least 3 places on Lightning. Thunder has either 2 or 5. It's really hard to tell. Their legs are definitely shattered, even if the bone is still under the skin. She delivered this to us in a dull monotone, but for the last bit her voice trembled just a little. Thunder looks like she's been partially skinned. One breast and her hip, leading down towards her vulva. Blood roared in my ears. Gasps sounded all around us, and Reva turned away, vomiting into the grass. Eleanor let out a sharp cry. My daughter? Storm, could you... I gestured for her to take Eleanor away, where she couldn't hear anymore. So, Doc, they definitely can't walk. Can we build stretchers? I knew stretchers was a long shot. Steve had brought what looked like his entire damn army in the hopes we'd come storming in to save those girls in a suicide run. I wanted to. God knows I wanted to. But I also figured Doc would be giving me a really good reason not to. The woman didn't disappoint, shaking her head decisively. I'm honestly not sure how they're still breathing. Even with a fully equipped hospital, I don't think we'd be able to save them. Maybe if we had everything we needed from blood to organs magically on hand. Her mouth turned down at the corners. Whoever did this was skillful to do this much damage while keeping them alive. My arms prickled as I remembered what Shrike, our new informant, had told us about Doc's husband, Ambrose Sutter. He hates women, he's cruel. I looked at the crucified girls. That kind of cruel? Maybe. Captain. Sirius appeared at my side, tears on her cheeks, her lips trembling. We can't leave them like this. Her voice was rock steady. Please, we don't leave anyone behind. I nodded once. Steve had come out in force, hoping to flush us out, track us back to the lair, and finish us all for good. Fuck 'em. Once upon a time, Doc said quietly, drained of life, we'd have viewed death as the worst thing that could happen. How sad that we know better now. Captain, Legs called quietly. Lightning's talking. I squirmed back to the top of the hill. Phoenix passed me her huge Barrett, the scope already calibrated for the distance. We could hear the faint sounds of her voice drifting on the breeze, though we lay too far away to make out anything. I watched her lips, blood forming on them even as she screamed her defiance. I could see plainly what she said. Kill us. Please, kill us. A stray breeze lifted a lock of hair that wasn't matted to her skin with blood. I wanted to wail my heart out, to curl into a ball and pretend this whole thing was a bad dream, that I'd wake from it if I tried hard enough. I took a deep breath, discovered that wasn't enough, and took another, ignoring the babble of voices, some talking about storming the army, others all for running back to the lair and never stepping foot outside it again. I had no good options. Steve would be coming for us the moment they saw movement, but I couldn't leave the girls like that. I sat back on my heels, the sudden motion stilling the voices around me. Phoenix! I looked over at my friend. She watched me silently, waiting. Can I borrow yours? Mine doesn't have the range. I can do it, she rasped. I'll take the big one. I shook my head. You'll never get that thing you'll never get in and out with that thing. I'll use your smaller rifle. I should do it, Sirius put in. I owe them this much. I shoot long range better than you, I pointed out ruthlessly. We didn't have time to coddle egos. And I sneak better than you, I added, forestalling Phoenix's next argument. You guys need to get back to the lair and start getting ready for visitors. What? You think they told? Thorin shouted, red-faced, hands clenched. I grabbed the boy, dragging him close and pointing his head in their direction. Look at them! I hissed. In that condition, I'd have said anything to get them to stop. We have to assume the worst and prepare for it. He gagged, tears welling in his eyes, but he looked ready to fight me on it. She's right, Sirius said heavily, holding up a hand to halt Thorin. We need to think about guarding the lair and meeting Steve before they get to us. I need Seahorse. I looked at Legs. Please. She nodded and raced off to find the ex-soldier, 100 yards north of our position. When she arrived back with Seahorse, filling her in on everything we knew, I looked up from my preparations. Booby-trap everything between us and them, I said without preamble. After that, fall back to Opal Creek. Let the trap slow them down while you get gone. Everybody knows what needs doing. Give 'em hell. We had a plan, sort of. The plan was to stop Steve before they ever made it to our wilderness. Most of the ways in were hiking paths and the road we'd first come in on. We had Opal Creek to the west, Detroit to the south, and Bagby Hot Springs to the north. Miles of nearly trackless land, steep slopes, and thick, old-growth forests. If we couldn't stop Steve before he made it in, we'd never stop him at all. Divide and conquer, that was the aim. I looked out at the massive soldiers on the hills below us. God knew we'd never be able to face them in full-on classical battle. What about you? Eleanor had returned unnoticed, gray-faced and haggard from the emotional blows. Storm stayed staunchly at her foster mother's side, though the look she turned towards Steve and Anna contained so much rage and hate that it amazed me she didn't try for a suicide run. I'm heading north, then west. I took the extra pouch of pemmican Sirius offered and the bandolier Phoenix had recently taken to carrying. A single-shot rifle's disadvantages could be mitigated by bringing a ton of spare ammo. My pockets were already packed with spare magazines, protein bars, and a folding knife. I had my larger knife in the small of my back, all 4 handguns. I looked around, searching for the last thing I needed to change. Right! My boots. I left the boots behind, pulling on a pair of knee-high moccasins, then refilled my canteen and made sure the flap holding it down was closed tightly. Seahorse had the fighters heading into the trees downslope of us, putting to use all the skills we'd learned over the last months. Some carried shovels, others had coils of paracord slung over their shoulders, flitting into the underbrush with barely a rustle. Finally, I stood ready to leave. All in, all out, I offered, trying to smile. The corners of my mouth turned down, no matter how hard I tried to stop it. Before another word could be said, I turned and jogged into the trees. Hail the victorious dead! Sirius cried behind me. Hail! Yelled every person in hearing. Yeah, that's the end of chapter 44. I'm so sorry. Yeah, the next chapter is going to be like this. So, watch yourself, cuddle a kitten, pet your dog,